President Trump allegedly pressured the leader of Ukraine to interfere in the 2020 election by spreading misinformation about Joe Biden. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. First, let's step back and remember how we got here. You might remember that earlier this year in an interview with George Stephanopoulos on ABC, Trump said straight up he would openly accept the help of a foreign government in the 2020 campaign if they offered dirt on an opponent.
Let's put yourself in a position, you're a congressman. Somebody comes up and says, hey, I have information on your opponent. Do you call the FBI? I don't think.
Coming from
I'll tell you
Russia,
what,
you do.
I've seen a lot of things over my life. I don't think in my whole life I've ever called the FBI. In my whole life. You don't call the FBI. This is somebody that said, we have information on your opponent. Oh, let me call the FBI. Give me a break. Life doesn't work that way.
FBI director.
No, your life doesn't work that way. Non-criminals' lives do work that way. You, on the other hand, have no shame. If a mobster called up Trump and said, let's meet down by the docks, I can't imagine him going, oh no, I better run this by my lawyer. Quick, someone knock on Rudy's coffin. And of course, you wouldn't call the FBI, you're the criminal. The only contact Trump has ever had with the FBI is via notes with letters cut out from magazines. Again, Trump went out of his way to tell everyone on national television that if he could get a foreign country to interfere in the 2020 election by giving him dirt on a political opponent, he would absolutely do it.
Your campaign this time around, if foreigners, if Russia, if China, if someone else offers you information on an opponent, should they accept it or should they call the FBI?
I think maybe you do both. I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening. If somebody called from a country, Norway, we have information on your opponent. Oh, I think I'd want to hear it.
You want that kind of interference in our elections?
It's not an interference. They have information. I think I'd take it.
Yeah, we know you'd take it because you already took it. Why? What's even the point of asking Trump these questions anymore? It's like rolling in Hannibal Lecter and saying, okay, if we let you go, are you going to eat any more guys? Also, I cannot help but notice that you're licking your lips while I'm asking this question. Now, this is where things started to get even crazier. About a month before that interview, Trump's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, announced that he was planning a trip to Ukraine to push for investigations that would help Trump by getting that country's new government to dig up dirt on the origins of the Russia investigation and the family of Democratic candidate Joe Biden. Now, after an outcry, Rudy canceled the trip. And after he did that, he went on Fox News to explain himself. And by explain himself, I mean he did what he always does. He made it much worse by explaining hypothetically how he could meddle in the 2020 election if he wanted to.
The election of 2020 is a long time from now. And if I wanted to meddle in that election, which I don't, I could have held this for a year and dropped it right before the convention.
If I wanted to meddle in this election, which I don't, is not convincing when you put so much thought into how you would do it. If I was going to Ukraine, which I'm not, I'd fly American, I'd connect through Heathrow, I'd bring noise-canceling headphones, a nice neck pillow, because I'd want to be well-rested for the meddling. But once again, Rudy also accidentally said something very incriminating. As the Fox anchor was trying to get him to end the interview, Rudy just casually threw out the idea that if Congress called him to testify about this, he would cite executive privilege, which would imply that he's spoken directly to the president about this attempt to interfere in the 2020 election. And when Rudy said that, even the Fox anchor was taken aback by the fact that Rudy was making news.
All right, Mr. Mayor, please keep us in touch with what's going on. But for now, we'll let the world know you're not headed to Ukraine.
I'm not going.
All right.
So they can call me before a committee.
We're out of time.
And maybe I'll take executive privilege or something or other. I don't know. We'll see.
Oh boy,
Or maybe
you're making
I'll
another headline tonight,
well, let's see what
Mr.
can
Mayor.
happen. But
thank you for dropping
they
in.
are really pathetic, and
We
they're
gotta go.
scared, and they're on defense.
All right, we got to go. Thank you for dropping in. Great to see you.
Only on Fox News do they follow, oh boy, you're making headlines with, well, we gotta go. It was like the director was in the booth screaming, go to commercial before journalism happens. So just to recap, that's where things stood before last week. The president said in public that he would welcome the help of a foreign government interfering in the 2020 election, and his personal lawyer was trying to get Ukraine to do exactly that. And then things got even more suspicious. For example, it was reported in August that Trump was seriously considering blocking $250 million in military aid to Ukraine. And then last week, we found out that in a phone call with an unnamed foreign leader, Trump had made a promise that was regarded as so troubling that it prompted an official in the U.S. intelligence community to file a whistleblower complaint. So an intelligence official who heard Trump's promise on the call found it so alarming they reported it. Now, at first, Trump's only response to this was to insist that he would never be stupid enough to make such an illicit promise on a phone call when other people were listening.
He tweeted his first response, writing, "Another fake news story out there. It never ends. Virtually any time I speak on the phone to a foreign leader, I understand that there be many people listening from various U.S. agencies, not to mention from the other country itself. No problem." And he goes on to say, knowing all of this, is anybody dumb enough to believe that I would say something inappropriate with a foreign leader while on such a potentially heavily populated call?
Of course you would say something inappropriate. You're always saying something inappropriate. You have no filter and no ability to restrain yourself. Just last week, when you were touring your stupid border wall, you blurted out something about the technology built into the wall that even one of your own officials said should be kept a secret.
One thing we haven't mentioned is technology. They're wired so that we will know if somebody's trying to break through, and you may want to discuss that a little bit, General.
Sir, there could be some merit in not discussing that.
Okay? I like that. That was a great answer. I'll just tell you they're wired.
So that guy just said, don't tell them about the wires, and your response was, cool, but just so you know, they're wired. I think your brain is wired, just the wires aren't in the right order. I mean, he did that in front of cameras and microphones, so I have no problem believing that Trump would try to extort a foreign leader with other people listening. That would not be surprising at all. And sure enough, over the weekend, we found out that not only did Trump pressure the president of Ukraine into investigating Biden and his son, he did it over and over and over again.
President Trump urging the president of Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden's son, Hunter, multiple times. That's according to the Wall Street Journal in a breaking news story just minutes ago. Sources telling the Journal that President Trump made the request about 8 times on a July phone call.
He brought it up 8 times on one phone call. 8 times makes it seem like a pretty obvious crime. It's like if you went on trial for stabbing a guy and said it was an accident, he fell on the knife, and they said 8 times? Yeah, he was wearing roller skates. Now, that report came after Trump's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, had all but confessed in an insane meltdown on CNN. In fact, at one point during the interview, Rudy went from denying the story to admitting it like 30 seconds later.
Did you ask the Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden?
No, actually, I didn't. I asked the Ukraine to investigate the allegations that there was interference in the election of 2016 by the Ukrainians for the benefit of Hillary Clinton, for which there already is a court
never asked
finding.
anything about Hunter Biden. You never asked anything about Joe Biden.
The only
and his
thing
role
I
with the
asked about
prosecutor.
Joe Biden is to get to the bottom of how it was that Lutsenko, who was appointed, dismissed the case against Antak.
So you did ask Ukraine to look into Joe Biden?
Of course I did.
What? You just said, you did. I mean, I've seen witnesses break down under cross-examination, but never the lawyer. Sometimes I can't decide with Rudy if he's really a confused old man or if it's all an intentional strategy that he keeps up because he's a confused old man. It was sometimes impossible to follow Rudy's logic and syntax in this interview. Just watch as, within the span of one sentence, he calls the allegation ridiculous, says he's proud of it, then calls it ridiculous again.
You want to cover some ridiculous charge that I urged the Ukrainian government to investigate corruption. Well, I did, and I'm proud of it.
Well, then it's not a ridiculous allegation. You just admitted it.
It's a ridiculous allegation.
You just admitted it.
It's a ridiculous allegation.
Rudy,
of course.
you just admitted that you did it.
I mean, that's like, this is the easiest interview Chris Cuomo's ever done. He doesn't even need to be there. Just put Rudy on both sides of the screen and let him debate himself. It's a ridiculous allegation, but you said you did it. I did it. I'm proud of it. Cuomo also tried to point out that Rudy had contradicted himself, but Rudy denied it.
No,
Rudy, I have no problem with you launching allegations, but just be careful about what you say. I asked you, did you ask Ukraine to look at Joe Biden? You said no. Then you went on to say that you did.
No, I didn't say that.
It's all recorded.
What I
recorded? Oh! I thought we were having dinner. This isn't Tavern on the Green? I've been eating a steak this whole time. And of course, because Rudy was making wild and baseless accusations about Joe Biden or Ukrainians somehow colluding with Hillary Clinton to set up a rigged investigation or whatever, Cuomo asked him for proof. And of course, Rudy could not provide any.
And you know what you're going to find out? It was Ukrainian collusion with Hillary Clinton.
Well, let's look. You don't want to give me the proof, that's fine. When it comes out,
I don't have to give you
I'll
the
cover
proof.
it.
Go
I'm not
read
saying
it.
you have to. It would be nice.
It's written in
is all I'm
books. You
saying.
just won't read it. It's all over the internet.
you
Go
said-
read it.
That does not mean anything. Everything is on the internet. You can probably find a listicle called 30 Times Rudy Sat on His Balls on the internet. Doesn't mean it's true. Then at one point, this interview got so off the rails that Cuomo and Rudy were just shouting at each other after Rudy said Cuomo was biased and called him a sellout.
And you want to distort what I'm saying.
I don't want to
You're
distort it.
totally biased.
I'm not biased.
You are,
Why would
Chris.
I have you
It's
on if I
sad
were biased, knowing that we're
because-
going to have this kind of conversation?
Because it is sad to watch what happened to you. It's sad.
Sad
You're a
what
total
watch what
sellout.
happened to me. I'm a sellout.
You are a sellout. I'm
You
gonna
are
tell
telling
you why.
me that I'm a sellout.
These-
Maron! You guys are gonna talk like that. We're gonna have to move this interview to a butcher shop. Gonna invite Joe Pesci. So knowing the damage had been done, Rudy had to once again engage in this ritual walk of shame from the CNN studios over to the Fox News studios, where they played his CNN interview for him, made him watch it, and tried to get him to explain it. And I love that Rudy tried to pull a Clark Kent and put on glasses so that people would think he was a different guy. Now, watching this tape, I don't know who that good-eyed lunatic is, but he's speaking nonsense. He should be fired. And once we started to find out the truth of what happened, the same routine played out that has happened with previous Trump crimes. First, he denied it, then he admitted it, and basically said, so what? Watch the progression of Trump's changing story from Friday morning to Sunday morning to later that same Sunday.
Did you discuss Joe Biden, his son, or his family with the leader?
It doesn't matter what I discussed. I had a great conversation with numerous people. I don't even know exactly who you're talking about. The conversation I had was largely congratulatory, was largely the fact that we don't want our people, like Vice President Biden and his son, creating to the corruption already in the Ukraine. But just so you understand, the conversation I had with the president of Ukraine was absolutely perfect.
Can you say whether on this call you raised Joe Biden or his son's name with Ukraine?
Well, I don't even want to mention it, but certainly I'd have every right to. And there was no pressure, no nothing. There was no pressure. That was not pressure. I know when I give pressure, and that was not pressure.
So he went from it doesn't matter what I discussed to I don't want to talk about it to we talked about Biden to it was a perfect conversation to if I did talk about Biden, then I'd have the right to talk about Biden to I didn't pressure anyone. Can't believe I'm saying this, but maybe you should let Rudy step in here. The President of the United States allegedly used his power to extort a foreign leader to meddle in the 2020 election on his behalf, and his rabies-brained vampire lawyer is going on TV and admitting to it. If this isn't impeachable behavior, I don't know what is. The House should impeach him immediately, or at the very least, someone should pick up the phone and say,
Oh, let me call the FBI.
this has been a closer look.